Hello and a massive welcome to all of you 7,500 subscribers to the next in our second series here on InfoSec Live of the CISO experience, where we get to engage with and learn from the security industry's leadership. And today our special guest is Alfredo Hickman, the acting CISO at Obsidian Security. Alfredo has a wide range of experience as a security leader and practitioner. And prior to Obsidian, Alfredo led security product engineering at Rackspace, where he helped build a successful global managed security services business. And earlier in his career, Alfredo held roles at a major Washington D.C. think tank focused on national cybersecurity policy, worked in the US Department of Defense, founded a cybersecurity consultancy, and served in uniform in the United States Marine Corps Infantry. But before we bring him on and dig into his successes and challenges, for those that are new, I'm your host, Simon Linstead, and by sharing stories and best practice over the last few months, it's led to over 100,000 views here on YouTube by you, our amazing subscribers. So a huge thank you for your engagement. And thanks to your support, it's also led to the launch of our in-person events, community-driven events, should I say, here in the UK and in the US, with a focus on knowledge sharing, networking, and definitely no sales pitches. Got a little QR code here. If you want to check out what we're doing on the event side, please check it out. Use that QR code. We've got events planned next in London in November and December, and a return to the US tour kicking off in early 24 with New York, Miami, and Tampa. However, if you're interested in hosting or attending one of these events at another city in the UK or US, please do reach out to me. I'm always open for suggestions. Meanwhile, back in the community, another QR code coming up here. We have study groups, mentor sessions, and regular networking sessions to help you raise your game in cybersecurity, no matter what level you are. So make sure you check out the community. If you haven't joined already, you can join using that QR code. And let's not forget that without our event sponsors, they're effectively what's funding the whole community now and all of the work we're doing on YouTube. So a massive thank you to I think it's a dozen companies now who since February have sponsored our events. I'm going to put a little list of them together and do a show reel later on for YouTube just so that we can show our appreciation, but thank you. Again, though, if you'd like to support the wider InfoSec Live community or indeed buy me a cheeky decaf coffee, we do have a way you can do that right here on YouTube with 3 tiers of membership, allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We want to make these events as interactive as possible. So make sure you do drop any questions you have in the chat at any point through the show today. Pleased to know, it's time for Simon to stop rambling on. Let's bring Alfredo on and dig into the CISO experience. I always get a sweat on with that. And I'm now looking at the chat and apparently the mic volume is too low. So hopefully people can hear me now. Alfredo, massive welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Simon. I really appreciate you having me here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for spending a bit of time with Simon and I.
And I love the comments there. Who would have thought Simon was a rambler? Yes, Prashant, you watch these all the time. So you know that I ramble on incessantly. I blame it on my ADHD. So let's just stick with that. But it's time for Simon to try and be quiet and get you to do some talking, Alfredo. What I'd really like to start off with today is for you to tell myself and our audience a bit about yourself and how you've got to where you have now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simon. Appreciate it. So I'm very fortunate, as Simon kind of alluded to a little bit in the intro, I'm a longtime security practitioner and leader. I've been practicing security now in one way, shape, or another for a bit of over 20 years. And if you count childhood experiences, even longer than that. So a little bit about my, superhero origin story, but I'm from San Antonio, Texas in the United States. I am a son of immigrants, 2 boys in my family, based out of San Antonio, Texas, and I was exposed to computer technology, internet, kind of pretty early on in my youth. My mother was an engineer, and used to bring home her work with her, and exposed us to that, my brother and I really kind of latched onto that. And this was in the 90s, early and mid 90s, when the internet was really starting to be commercialized and, streaming services were starting to come out, online video games and things like this. And, as much as I enjoyed, downloading music and playing video games and instant messenger with my friends, I think one of the things that separated me from a lot of my group was that I was really interested in how the technology worked. What was under the hood? What were the implications in terms of commerce and business and education and all of these sorts of opportunities that would result from this technology, right? And so I really thought that was immediately what I was going to go do. I'd go to the library, I'd check out stacks of books. I was teaching myself how to code. I was teaching myself how to build computers. And then, in 2001, when I was in high school, September 11th happened and the United States was attacked by Al-Qaeda. And that kind of changed the world, right? At that point, my trajectory was like, hey, my brother and I, we're going to go enlist in the military and we're going to go serve our country. And that exposed me to a whole nother world of security, physical, counterterrorism, signals intelligence, and various other things. So kind of went down that path.
Okay. One thing I want to pick up on there, I mean, firstly, I'm not a US citizen, but I do appreciate your service, seeing as that we're a bit of a team, the UK and the US. We've had our moments, right, in the past, but I think we're pretty much together now. With everything that's going on in the world, I mean, we had a brief chat about this before we came on. I don't want to get bogged down in politics and war chat today, but I would just like to say that my thoughts, best wishes and love are going out to everyone on both sides of the conflict, both in Ukraine and in Israel and Gaza at the moment, because the last thing we want is human suffering, right?
Absolutely, brother. As someone who has lived that life on the front lines, it's difficult to read the news on the headlines, and we know that there's a lot behind that. Yeah. But when you really understand that these are human beings on all sides of the conflict, it hits hard.
It does. It really does. So yeah, now we've got that out of the way. One of the things I picked up on that you mentioned when you were younger was your desire to understand how things work, right? And I think for me, only being in the industry 3 years, it's clear that the people who are successful are the ones with the really inquisitive minds who want to understand how things work and break them. I think, though, as a society, and if you've heard this before on one of my shows, I won't apologize because I think it's relevant. Can you remember? We had a Betamax. You're a lot younger than me, but we had a Betamax video recorder before we had a VHS one. And I remember that turning up in the box, and the instructions were in Chinese. There was no English instructions, and you had to actually sit down and work out how this thing, one, was assembled, two, how to operate it. And then a few years later, and this is where I think everything went wrong, Video Plus was introduced, right? Where you got 6 numbers in your TV guide that you could just put in your remote and it would automatically record that show, the whole series. For me, everyone gave up on understanding how anything works now. And we're all so reliant upon technology, whether it's mobile phones, laptops, computers, iPads. None of us really understand how it works. And that's a little bit of a concern, right?
I mean, I think, in many ways, yes. We talk here about cybersecurity community practitioners coming in, folks at various stages of the career. I don't think there's any one, standard way of entering this industry, entering the community. No. Biodiversity and neurodiversity and all these kind of things. But one thing that I think makes us successful, or is a requirement to make us successful in this industry, is that inquisitive mindset to want to understand the way things work. Because it's easy with technology, right? Part of the user experience is abstracting away as much of the complexity as possible so that it's easy to consume and leverage the value out of these products. But in the same process, you lose something when you don't really fully understand the way technology works, how it comes together, what are the implications, right? We're seeing a lot of this play out right now with artificial intelligence, right? Do we move forward full steam ahead? We've
all seen the films, right?
We've all seen the films, right? A lot of us, we want to leverage the value, we want to create, we want to see what possibilities are, but do we really understand how this technology works, what the implications are for society, communities, governments, and things like that? Yeah. I think that's why it's so important for us as security practitioners to have that critical thinking mindset and to always look at things through kind of a critical lens, right?
And I think that the critical thinking is one of the crucial skills that you need, I think, in this industry. And for me, while we're on the subject, there's an awful lot of bullshit, excuse my French, out there from certain training providers and boot camps telling people, come and do our course and you'll become a cyber pro in 6 months. Now, I've got a huge problem with that, mostly because I speak to probably between 5 and 10 people every week from LinkedIn and from inside the community who've had really shitty experiences paying out, whether in the US it's using your transition budget you get from the military, they do the same here. They all seem to be about the same price. And they're all saying, do our course and you'll become an expert. And you hit the nail on the head, as far as I'm concerned. There isn't one path in. And that one path might suit one person, but for someone with different experience and different skills, it's completely irrelevant and useless. And they talk about a skills gap. I mean, I don't think there is one at the entry level at all. I think if there is a skills gap, it's having more people like you in leadership positions who know about leadership, perhaps understand business a little bit more. Shall we touch on that for a bit and get your views?
I think, they say that there's no such thing as bad team members, just bad leaders. I think that's part of the equation. I think talent, right? That critical mindset, that's probably something. Thinking is hard, right? That's why more people don't do it, right? So I encourage folks to really think critically and think for themselves. But leadership, right? Really taking ownership of a situation and really having that servant leadership mentality where you care about the mission, the vision, the values, and the team. Yeah. In the military, in the Marine Corps, we used to say by, with, and through. Everything that we do is by, with, and through others. Nothing that we do is individual, right? It's the team coming together to punch above its weight class where 1 + 1 does not equal 2, it equals 3 or 4 or 5, right? Yeah, and 100%. that force multiplication effect ultimately only happens when you have effective leaders that genuinely care about their teams. They're the individuals that comprise the team. They care about the mission. What are we trying to accomplish? They care about the organization, the collective group, and the values, the why, the big why, right? And if you know your why, then you'll figure out your how, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And from someone who's been a leader for over 20 years in a different industry, I wish I could say I was that leader. And I think, I mean, we've had the discussion about my rise and fall from grace, as it were, and losing everything. And I think the biggest lesson I learned from losing everything I'd built up is that I always thought that I could do something better than everyone else. And it's a hard lesson to learn when you realize that you're not the best person to do all of the things within a business. And I think being able to be humble and being able to accept our mistakes and also look at ways of making sure they don't happen again in the future. I mean, I've just enrolled on, at 49 years old next month, I've enrolled on an MBA, despite the fact that I've had businesses all my life. I know I've got all these massive gaps within there. And I'd love to be a good leader, but I think there's a lot of work for me still until I'm at the point where I can be the leader that I want to be and people deserve. So.
Absolutely, brother. There is no end state. There is no destination to being a good leader. It's something that we have to earn every day. We're all human, right? We have our strengths and our weaknesses. We have our good days and our bad days, right? But, you know, the journey, the path to continue to move forward, to continue to be humble and know that we don't know everything, that we oftentimes don't have all the answers. And that's why we surround ourselves with our teammates, right? And we try to recruit, retain, and develop the best quality talent that we possibly can. Absolutely. Right? And then we refine our craft. Good leaders are not born. Good leaders are made, right? They're made.
I completely agree. And Carlos has just hit the nail on the head in the journey, going back to something that you said. It is all about the journey. It's not anything to do with the destination. And I spent a long time in my life chasing that destination, that next thing. But as soon as you start to become present, enjoy what you're doing at the moment, I think life takes a big turn the right way, right? But enough talking about me. I feel like we've got a great opportunity here because you are the acting CISO for a vendor, effectively. And a lot of the conversations that come up on this show normally sort of pan around CISOs being really pissed off with the way that people are harassing them and badgering them. And from someone who has 30 years experience in sales, I feel the pain on both sides because, you know, people are targeted for a reason. Businesses function through sales. Without sales, no business, unless you're a not-for-profit or a government entity, would exist, and no one would have a job. So I think from my layperson's point of view, maybe there's a bit of work to be done on the leadership side with regards to maybe accepting this shit's just going to happen. And from the vendor's side, maybe there's some improvements that can be made. And I see Cody Kennedy is in the audience. Good to see you, Cody. And Cody's building something pretty special, which I can't talk about because I haven't been allowed to, basically, am I, Cody? But he's building something that should anonymize the process of vendors and decision makers getting together and being informed and learn. So I'm super excited about that. But the question is, after all that rambling preamble, why did you jump to the dark side and what does your day job look like?
Yeah. So, you know, and this is kind of I'm going to try to contain this response to this specific questions, but I know you, Simon, and Carlos, we've had conversations about vendor and non-vendor security practitioners. I've been pretty fortunate. I've done it on the non-for-profit side at the think tanks. I've done it in the government side in counterterror. I've done it in the internal side and as well as a vendor. So I have a little bit of a well-rounded position here. To your point, you know, almost all of us here are selling something, right? Yeah. Whether it's a service, whether it's a product, ourselves, marketing ourselves, you know, in terms of trying to land the next job and everything else. Yeah. So we're all selling something, right? And I think that as a community, we kind of do ourselves a little bit of a disservice when we say, hey, this is a vendor and this is a non-vendor, because we're all selling something, right? I am the CISO at Obsidian Security. We are the leading SaaS security platform on the market, right? We secure all the major SaaS applications. We've built out over the course of the last 5 years a robust internal security, corporate security, product security, governance, risk and compliance, privacy, and IT function to basically secure ourselves and deliver related services to ourselves internally, as well as by proxy of the product to our customers, right? So in order to have integrity to that mission, to be able to sell a product that actually delivers value to our customers, we have to practice what we preach and have good internal security. So I joined Obsidian in 2018. Prior to that, I had built and led product security engineering at Rackspace for our global managed security services business, which was a phenomenal experience because I was doing security as a profit center, right? Which for a lot of us, coming out of the internal security background is a really nice paradigm to kind of experience security through. So I saw the challenges that we were having in terms of our organizations, ourselves included, migrating to the cloud, leveraging cloud infrastructures, and really trying to grapple with the shared security responsibility model. And when customers and ourselves were migrating from infrastructure to SaaS, I saw huge opportunity. Security technical controls and capabilities were very immature to non-existent at the time. Yeah. There was no shared security responsibility at the SaaS application layer as there was at the CSP infrastructure layer. And I was like, wow, as a security practitioner, I want to go see what I can do there to improve the situation. So when I got the call from Ben Johnson, my former boss, who was the CTO and co-founder of Carbon Black, and was like, hey, I want you to join Obsidian to build our global security program, product security and corporate, I jumped at the opportunity. I jumped because it was a really fascinating problem set, right? So how do we understand, similar to Sun Tzu, right? If you understand yourself and you understand the adversary, you'll be more successful in the fight. So I took that mentality, as well as the mentality that I had taken from years of counterinsurgency, which was strong leadership and governance at the top and organic grassroots buy-in for a shared vision and destination at the bottom, and created a security program that helped us enable the business to be more successful, right? To win customers, to establish customer trust, and enabled us to have integrity to the mission of securing ourselves, right? So we at Obsidian, we train like we fight and we fight like we train, because we have this nexus of people, process, and technology oriented to support the business to be successful while having a shared vision and mission that motivates us to want to,
and that shared vision and mission is so important, right? I mean, I'm trying to work on that for the InfoSec Live community at the moment. People say, what's the mission? What's the plan? And I've got it all in my head, but I think writing it down and communicating that to everyone involved is super important, right? And I mean, touching on Obsidian. So again, I'm not a technical person and haven't got much experience, but I have been to a few trade shows over the last 2 years, and I've got to be honest. The stuff that you guys are doing, I didn't see dozens and dozens of vendors in the hall doing that. There's definitely in the industry a concentration of vendors doing the same thing, which I don't think you guys are really doing. How and let me frame that a bit better. Another company I've been dealing with at the moment are an API company. I won't name the name, but their biggest challenge, despite the fact that we all use APIs and most companies have them, is the education piece and educating leaders to understand what the problem is and how their solution can help. So my question, now I've framed that, is how have you found that challenge with what you're doing at Obsidian, and what have you done differently?
Yeah, so that was a huge challenge, right? Because we entered the market. Our DNA at Obsidian is very security operations centric, right? We come out, myself, like the Defense Department, intelligence community, Carbon Black, Silence, CrowdStrike. We come from like a really security, offensive, defensive kind of centric perspective. So we had come at the problem of how do we secure SaaS applications, threat detection, incident response, posture, vulnerability management, integration, third-party risk compliance, all these things. How do we do this in a holistic manner and be able to communicate that to the market? We came at that very early, right? If you look at the successes that we've had now over the course of the last 2 years, it's easy to say, hey, that was an overnight success. And then what you don't see is the prior
no such thing, right?
No such thing, right? The overnight success, you don't see the years of blood, sweat, and tears behind that overnight success, right? So for the first 3 years, it was very much, pardon for the analogy, but, John the Baptist evangelizing in the wilderness, trying to spread the gospel of SaaS security. And even like myself, long-standing security practitioners, very intelligent, experienced people that were struggling to wrap their heads around it. So consistent messaging, education, clearly and empirically demonstrating the value proposition, and then over time winning the trust of our customers and our partners like CrowdStrike and all of the leading incident response firms around the world that are using Obsidian every single day in the most complex IR engagements, to be able to say, hey, this is the truth. This is the real deal. Here's the value, and let me prove it to you, and let me earn your trust. Consistency over year.
And that's what it's all about, the earning the trust bit, right? Which is what you see everyone squabbling and arguing about. I'm just trying to do two things at once and find a link to your site here. Here it is. This seems to be the bit that people are struggling with. So sales folk in the industry, they're told by leaders that it's trust they need to build up. They're also told by leaders to stop sending them messages on LinkedIn because they're pissing them off. So the next question is, in order to build trust, we first have to establish contact. How would a vendor go about doing that with leaders, especially if they're new to the industry?
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm not naturally a cynical person, so I'll put the cynicism aside. Okay. All right. So step number one, we're all using automated tools, right? We all have to scale ourselves, and we all have to get maximum reach and return on investment. Please ensure that your messaging is on point and you're not passing any undefined variables in your messages, because hello X, I'm really a fan of your company, and you personally and everything else is not going to resonate very well to anybody, right? It's a put off, right? Yeah. So I think being genuine and being humble, these are two things. Be genuine and be humble when you approach a security leader. We're all busy. You're busy as sales leaders. You have quotas. You probably have pretty rough cultures where if you miss quota, you're out. Internally, as security practitioners, we're always fighting. Internally, we're fighting for budget. Externally, we're fighting with adversaries. Security leaders and practitioners are always fighting. Yeah. So empathy, being genuine and organic, and then respectful, right? And really showing that you know who that prospect, who that potential customer is,
and you understand what's keeping them awake at night and what their challenges are. And I think that's all part of the building up trust piece. And for me, with my sales hat on, the bit after that people seem to miss, which is super important, is the fact that you then have to start to add value before you talk about selling them anything. So whether that's through education or whatever route it is you need to go down. For me, it's a 3-step process. It's opening the door, establishing that rapport and building up that relationship, then adding value. And you have to add value first before you can then come in with stage 3, which is, let's talk about, how we solve the problems that you've got, if it's relevant. Because again, there's a lot of irrelevant reaching out going on in the industry where we can help you do this and we do this and our solution's got AI and it does this, which is, great. But how the fuck do you know whether I've got that problem or not? If you took a little bit of time to do some what I would call fact finding or data capturing, whether it's soft or hard facts, and actually find out what the issues are, and if you can't help them with the product that you've got, if you've got experience in the industry, you're bound to have a big network of people who might be able to help. So for me, it's about connecting people, helping people before you start trying to sell something. And if you do it that way, which goes against completely the way people are targeted in the industry, because at the end of the day, businesses are there to make money. And if you're telling your sales manager every month, I've got all these things on the go, but nothing comes through, again, you've got a problem where you lose your job. But there's got to be a balance between that, getting the business in now, striking it lucky and hitting a CISO who has got a need, which happens, which I suppose is where the automation and the numbers game comes from, and then building up that pipeline of relationships. And again, this doesn't relate to you, but the average tenure is between 18 and 22 months for a CISO. So you might not be able to help them this year, but hey, guess what? Next year, they might have moved to an organization that needs your product.
Yeah. And I think that's what separates, the truly great sales professional from kind of the rookie or the amateur, right? Is their ability to balance kind of that pipeline and the ability to close deals along with the relationship building, the long-term investment in genuine relationship building that allows, say, for example, security leaders like myself to be able to give the time of day to somebody when they say, hey, now, we're at this other company, I've moved on, and I have something that I genuinely think can help you deliver value to your organization, right?
Yeah.
Those are, I mean, from a security practitioner and leadership perspective, those are the folks that we enjoy working with, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think just jumping in the chat, there's a few comments on there, and I see Carlos has asked a question that I'll bring up next. Rich McCrowan, if you're not solving a problem, there is no sales opportunity. Completely
Absolutely.
agree with that.
100%.
And Prashant, hey Simon, I've got this widget that fixes all your business problems and you won't need another product. I think you've been copying the emails that I keep getting in my inbox every day, despite the fact that I haven't got the need for, an EDR or any of these things that people keep trying to sell me. They seem to think that I need one. Maybe I should get one anyway. But Carlos, where's your question? Here it is. I'll move you up the top, otherwise it's going to cut your head off. There we go. Okay. A major problem in our space has been due to so many solutions being created that really don't solve problems. Do you see that changing as the market has hardened on venture capital money?
Every time that I think it's changing, you kind of see another example of where it hasn't, right? Because at the end of the day, venture capital firms are in there to make money, and they spread load their portfolios, their investment portfolios, to diversify, right, their risk and odds of return. So, we hear a lot about consolidation in the tool space. We see acquisitions all the time, right? Palo, Arctic Wolf, CrowdStrike, everybody is making acquisitions, and there's market consolidation there where you're trying to find the one-stop shop to be your everything security vendor, right? But then you see new entrants into the market that are still selling point solutions, or that are creating or attempting to create new market-defining categories of product. So I don't know, if history has proven us anything, is that, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Thank you, Carlos. That was a really good question. Right, I've got some little questions here on my list that I'd like to ask you, if that's okay with you.
Sure, yeah.
Your advice, first of all, to anyone in the industry who's aspiring to be a leader, whether that be a CISO or similar, what would your advice be to them?
Okay, step number one, if you're aspiring to be a leader, ensure that you can lead yourself, right? And I'll explain what I mean by that. If you can't lead yourself, you cannot lead anybody else. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So as a leader, first and foremost, you have to know a few things. One, you don't have all the answers. Second, oftentimes you take the responsibility and you take the brunt of decisions that are made not only by you but by everyone else on your team. And second and third, there's often not someone there behind you to say, hey, this is what you need to do, XYZ things. You have to take the initiative, right? You have to be self-disciplined. You have to understand what the priorities are, right? So if you understand the general mission, vision, values of the organization, and you understand the commander's intent, your boss, what you're trying to accomplish, then you can start to yourself create the plans and the roadmaps along with the input of your team to go and execute on that mission. You have to be willing to take that initiative. No one's going to push you behind you. No one's going to say, hey, you must do X, Y, and Z. You have to take that upon yourself. Once you understand how to prioritize and execute, once you have that discipline to go and lead yourself, then you can start to abstract those principles to others, right? Building others up, enabling others by, with, and through to accomplish the mission. And you have to set that example yourself. You have to lead from the front. If your teammates see that you're inconsistent and that you're demanding of them things that you yourself are not willing to do, you are going to lose all credibility as a leader. So you have to lead from the front, you have to practice what you preach, and you have to have integrity to that mission.
I love that answer, and it was a little bit close to home, and you made me sort of get a dry throat at the start, because I think you've got to be able to lead yourself is what hit home for me, because I think that's where I was a few years ago. People were looking up to me, but inside I was broken and needed fixing, really. And I think the only thing I'd add on to that is make sure you want to be a leader for the right reason. Being a leader isn't for everyone, and I don't think everyone perhaps would enjoy being a leader with the stresses that it brings and the pressures that it brings. So again, think about what it is you want out of life, not about work, but what you want out of life for yourself and your family. And does being a leader fit into that? And if you're just doing it for the salary, again, there's enough leaders out there who do just do it for the salary, but they're definitely not the best one, right? And as Carlos said, vulnerability helps as well. And it does. And it's all about that empathy you were talking about earlier, Alfredo, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next question. Who has been, and this doesn't have to be an industry person, but who has been your biggest inspiration?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I have any one biggest inspiration. I'm a ENTJ, extroverted, intuitive thinking, judger.
Yeah.
My personality type,
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs, exactly right. I'm an ENTJ. I absorb knowledge and information all the time. I read. I have a library that I've been building since I was about 12 years old. I have thousands of books. I have 3 libraries in my home. So I have basically spent my entire life learning leadership and philosophy and ethics and all of these leadership practices, and through the military. In the military, I was fortunate enough to work with some of the best leaders that I have ever been exposed to when the stakes were the highest, when people's lives were on the line, right? And I got to see those examples. Through reading history and philosophy, I got to see the examples of leaders throughout history and see where they succeeded and where they failed, and learn through their experiences. Through my own experiences, similar to yourself, hitting rock bottom, right, and having nowhere to go other than up, right? So I've been fortunate in my career to have so many different inspirations. Jocko Willink, the author of Extreme Ownership, has been extremely influential on my leadership. Stanley McChrystal has been very influential in my leadership, a team of teams concept, right? General Mattis in the Marine Corps, who was my commander at 1st Marine Division, a living legend today in military leadership circles, has been very influential. So it's really, I can't pinpoint any one person. I have many inspirations.
I think I'm the same. I take inspiration from so many people that I meet, and I've had an awful lot of inspiration from people in this industry. You know, whilst I've said that there's a gap in the leadership space, there's also a plethora of people like yourself who are prepared to take time out to speak to people like me, share their knowledge and experiences, and that's really humbling. And I think from a motivation video, if someone wants to watch a video that's quite motivating, I think his name was is it Admiral McRaven?
Oh, Admiral Bill McRaven, absolutely.
That's the one. Yeah, I'm trying. Let me see if I can find the clip. But there's a clip, and it's all about making your bed, right?
Oh, yep.
Let me find that. And for me, I am that person a little bit where I make sure that things are where they should be in the morning, and I'm getting ready for the day in the way that I should. Oh, he's now playing in my ear. I'm just trying to get this link. For me, this made a real difference about 4 years ago when I watched this, along with Steve Jobs actually connecting the dots speech that you can find on YouTube. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, he pulls together, and the story he uses is when he was at university. The university he was at specialized in calligraphy, you know, the old school writing style. And he thought at the time what a waste of his time and effort it was to be spending, 8 hours a week doing this course. Then he goes on at the end to say that the only reason Apple Mac had so many different fonts, and we've got so many different fonts on our Windows machines and our Linux machines now, is because he did that course and he incorporated it all in. And for me, and for many people, I expect, watching this, we've done some pretty crappy, shitty jobs throughout our lives that at the time we thought, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. Well, at nearly 50 next year, every single one of those shitty jobs has kind of made me the man that I am and given me skills that I never thought I'd need. I mean, from selling frozen fish out the back of a van, knocking on people's door and selling double glazing, I mean, that gives you thick skin and the ability to take rejection, right? But at the time,
this is why I think the conventional path to cybersecurity is the unconventional path, right? I think that's the universal constant in the cybersecurity industry, is that there is no constant or standard path, right? Because we come, the space is so broad. We come from so many different backgrounds, and these experiences make us the people that we are. Yeah. And things that we might think, are completely irrelevant end up influencing us or giving us certain skills and character attributes that allow us to be successful later on. And we never really know, so. Right?
We don't know. We have to, exactly. It's the journey, isn't it? It's the journey where we learn all that stuff. Yeah. Okay, let me just check the chat, see if there's anything in there. Mad Dog, Prashant, often try to lead myself to water, but I can't seem to make myself drink. We need to have a chat, Prashant, about that, I think. And
Yeah.
the next one's Jonathan Van Houten. If you're not connected with Jonathan Alfredo, you've both got quite a lot in common: military service, leaders in the industry, and both really, really nice guys. The only thing you haven't got in common is that Jonathan's got an obsession with clotted cream, which I understand with your UHT milk is a real pain in the backside to make over there. So every time he comes on, I try and have a little dig about the fact I'm going to have scones and clotted cream and maybe some baked beans afterwards. So I just wanted to get in that in there. And he also mentions that he's an ENTJ as well. So ENTJs unite. For those watching, these events normally go on for an hour, but after my YouTube research, we're going to shave them down to 45 minutes. So we've got 3 or 4 minutes left, and I've got 2 questions here. So if I can rattle through these, sorry, Jonathan, if there's any questions from the audience, drop it in now, and I'll make sure we get it in before the end. This one, I suppose, depends if you want to answer this honestly, whether your boss is watching at the moment, but where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm kind of at a crossroads in my career right now, right? At Obsidian, I've been with the company for about 5 years. I've accomplished a lot of what I want to accomplish from a security practitioner leadership perspective. I have multiple interests. I'm advising companies right now through some of our VC companies and through some of the personal mentorship stuff that I'm doing. I've also been approached to create my own company and start doing things, kind of a round 2 of my own venture. I tried it before years ago when I came back from Afghanistan, and that was a very expensive education, but it was a really great education. It sure is. And then also, we mentioned that we wouldn't talk about politics, but my previous life was very much in the political arena, working on national policy in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. And I've had a number of organizations approach me to run for Congress in Texas, back home in Texas. So I'm kind of at an interesting juncture, whether, I go pursue another CISO role at a big company, start my own venture, or go into politics. So I'm kind of
for me, it's working out what's going to suit you and your family best, right? Out of all that, I think. The politics thing. So I was approached by, should I say the party? Yes, I will. When I had a financial services firm, I was approached by a local Conservative party to run for a local council election. However, I've got too many skeletons in my closet. And with the way the UK media is, I know that I'd been annihilated within about 6 minutes of that coming out. So I never did that. But I think there's definitely a space in British politics and definitely American politics for a decent person like you, right?
It is a difficult place.
It's a difficult landscape at the moment, not just in the US, but in the UK as well. I think shower of shit is the way we describe it here in the UK. A little bit different over there, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, and you might not have an answer for this one, but if you do, that would be great. Any books to recommend? Have you got a book that you can recommend that you've read recently?
Oh, absolutely. So Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That is one that I highly recommend to everybody. Go out there, get Extreme Ownership, read it, and apply those principles to your life. Whether you're leading yourself or you're leading large teams, own that. Be a part of the solution.
Okay, let me just get the link to that and drop that one in the chat. The other thing I want to drop in here, Rich is agreeing that's a great book. I haven't actually read it. Can you get it on Audible? Because my eyes are so bad now. I have to listen. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'll go for the Audible one. The other link I want to put in here, if I can find it. I know this isn't a sales pitch, but you've been good enough to share your experiences and stories with us. So I want to drop a link in here for Obsidian Security as well. If anyone's interested in what they're doing over there, take a look. And again, would you mind if I dropped your LinkedIn profile in here, Alfredo?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody, please learn something to pass on. Anybody that wants to talk about the industry, wants to connect professionally, if you want to learn more about what we're doing with Obsidian, please feel free to reach out.
That's amazing. And I think I can say this because I've spoken to I think he's your head of sales for Europe and the UK. I know you're looking for partners over here in the UK at the moment. So if anyone's watching from any partner organizations, I know that Dan here in the UK, Dan Good, is open to conversation. So please do reach out. Alfredo, thank you so much for the chat. It's been awesome. Audience, thank you so much for jumping in with all those questions. Jason's just put great session. Thanks. Hear you on the reading glasses. Mine doubled in intensity. And even with the reading glasses, I was getting repetitive strain from turning the page on either my Kindle or my book every 3 seconds because the font was so big. So I've given up now and I just listen. Where is it? Here. to audiobooks, which seems to be the way. But Alfredo, again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Everyone who's watched, thank you. We're back again tomorrow. We've got a focus on accessibility in cybersecurity tomorrow, following on from the stream with Justin Merhoff a few weeks ago. We have got an exciting session coming up, and we've got an SMB focus on Friday with Joe Evangelisto, two of his CISO friends, where we're going to be talking about the challenges that SMB CISOs have out there. And we probably should have touched on this, Alfredo, but they're feeling pretty unloved by the big security vendors. And maybe Obsidian Security would be interested in talking to some of that SMB sector. I'll make sure I bring it up on Friday. But everyone, have a great day. Have a great rest of the evening. Alfredo, see you all soon.
Simon, everybody, thank you so much for having me.
Cheers all.
Cheers.
Thank you.